Module 7, Ethics Part 2, Lecture 7a, Ethics based on Aristotle. Universal ethics. Universal ethics apply to all human beings at all times. This makes them different from relative ethics, which we spoke about in the previous lectures, which can vary from person to person or community to community. Universal ethics are usually divided up into three broad categories: virtue ethics, based on Aristotle; consequential ethics, most importantly Bentham and Mill's utilitarianism; and duty ethics, Kant's deontology. Virtue ethics. Ethics comes from habits. To Aristotle, everything has a purpose, a final cause. To be good is to fulfill that purpose. A good knife is one that fulfills its purpose by cutting well. A good boat is one that travels well through water. A good tree is one that fulfills its purpose by growing and flourishing. And a good human being is one who fulfills his or her purpose. In his classic Nicomachean Ethics, written in 350 BCE, Aristotle defined the purpose or end of a human being. He used the Greek word eudaimonia. Like a good empiricist, he described eudaimonia by studying the nature of human beings. Eudaimonia is often translated as happiness, but perhaps a better translation is fulfillment or prosperity. How does one lead a happy, fulfilled, prosperous, virtuous life? And that's a key word, virtue. How does one create such a life of eudaimonia? Aristotle taught that such a life is developed by creating habits. Virtue takes practice. When one develops a good habit, it eventually becomes part of their character. This brings us to one of Aristotle's most important ideas regarding virtue, the idea of the golden mean. For any virtue, it is possible to show a deficit, doing less than is proper, but it is also possible to show an excess, doing more than is proper. The object of finding any virtue is to find the correct middle ground, the place between deficiency and excess. For example, courage is a virtue, then cowardice is a deficiency, but on the other hand, foolhardiness, taking excessive risks, is also improper. Courage means finding the appropriate level of action between these extremes. Similarly, generosity is a middle ground between stinginess and extravagance with money. There's a list of the excesses and the deficiencies up on the right. Notice that one of the differences between Aristotle and Socrates says if you know the right thing, you'll do the right thing. Aristotle says you have to practice. It has to become a habit. The box on the right is a sample of virtues with excesses and deficits. Again, Aristotle seeks the golden mean. Virtue ethics has fallen out of favor today with the scientific revolution and the denial of final causation. Modern science, totally denied Aristotle, including his ethics. But some modern philosophers, in particular Alasdair MacIntyre, born 1929, pictured on right, in his book After Virtue, have tried to bring back virtue ethics. According to MacIntyre, ethics can only make sense if it is based on the ancient ideas of Aristotle, in particular, the idea that human life has a purpose. He writes that we moderns must choose between Aristotle, life has a purpose, or Nietzsche, God is dead and we choose our own purpose. Given a choice between Aristotle's virtue and Nietzsche's nihilism, moderns ought to pursue virtue. MacIntyre believed that trying to understand ethics based on reason alone, the goal of many modern philosophers, has led directly to Nietzsche. We must reintroduce Aristotle's idea of teleology, or purpose, to human life. Nonetheless, there's a problem with virtue ethics. Virtue ethics is about building character by creating good habits. Virtue is what a virtuous person does who wants to live the good life. Such a virtuous person pursues virtue. There seems to be some circular reasoning in the definition. Natural law. Ethics comes from nature. Natural law built on Aristotle's work, combining it with Christianity. The most famous advocate was Thomas Aquinas, 1225 to 1274, in his classic work Summa Theologica. If nature has a purpose and was created by God, we can learn ethics by studying nature. Again, this is like Aristotle, who learned from studying human beings, but now we give it a religious dimension. His work is part of the foundation of canon law in the Catholic Church. To Aquinas, there are four kinds of laws. One, eternal laws, the ultimate laws by which the universe runs. Two, natural laws, those laws or areas of eternal law that we humans can know by human reason. Three, divine laws, those laws revealed to us through Holy Scripture. And finally, four, positive laws, man-made laws such as those promulgated by a government. Some laws, like thou shalt not murder, are both natural and divine laws. We know them from Scripture, but we know them also through human reason. The question is, when there's a clash between natural law and positive law, we must obey the natural law. If government comes up with a law that goes against what we know to be the right thing, we have to do the right thing and ignore what the government says. This is the basis of civil disobedience. The key issue is that by studying nature, we can know the laws. And to read Martin Luther King Jr.'s writings, including his letter from a Birmingham jail, he talks about how justice, how natural laws overrule positive or government laws. In studying human nature, Aquinas mentions 6 different inclinations of human life. Natural law must be in keeping with each of these 6 fundamental human inclinations. 1, self-preservation. 2, heterosexual reproduction. 3, education of offspring. 4, rational thought. 5, knowledge of God. And 6, participation in society. So all laws must be in keeping with those 6. Any activity which prevents one of these 6 inclinations would be forbidden by natural law. For example, murder would be forbidden because it prevents preservation of life. Robbery would be forbidden because it prevents participation in society. But birth control would be forbidden because it prevents heterosexual reproduction. This is the reason that the Catholic Church, which bases much of its canon law on natural law as laid out by Aristotle and Aquinas, forbids birth control. Natural law runs into the problem already raised by David Hume. We cannot learn an ought from an is. G.E. Moore called this the naturalistic fallacy. If Hume and Moore are correct, we cannot learn ethics from nature. We need to turn to the 2 most popular secular approaches to universal ethics: utilitarianism and deontology.